Welcome to the NCIA's Voice of Cannabis. Join hosts Aaron Smith and Jimmy Young as they dive into the pulse of the cannabis industry, featuring weekly guests who break down big topics like standardization, evolving regulations, and exclusive member spotlights. Get informed, get inspired. And now, here are your hosts, Aaron and Jimmy.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the NCIA's Voice of Cannabis podcast. This is presented by Buds Group. And luckily, we're going to hear lots about Buds Group in this episode of the podcast. I am PCM TV founder Jimmy Young.
And I'm Aaron Smith, CEO and co-founder of NCIA.
There you go. And who do we have on as a guest? Rick LaNeve from Buds Group. Rick, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thanks for having me, Jimmy and Aaron.
And more importantly, thank you for your support. And as a new member of the NCIA, Aaron has a whole bunch of stuff that he could share about what you get for your membership. Go ahead, Aaron.
All right, fill me in.
Well, we just, want to thank you for your support. And, this podcast is an opportunity to really demonstrate just the broad, diverse breadth of membership that NCIA has and what it really means to be in the cannabis industry. And it's not just growers, it's not just retailers, it's finance, accounting, attorneys, and all sorts of service providers. And so we welcome you to NCIA. NCIA members, first and foremost, are making it possible for the industry to have a voice on Capitol Hill, to advance policy reforms through having full-time lobbying presence in Washington, D.C. And that's political representation that is invaluable when you're talking about an industry that's up against some significant challenges as a result of prohibition. We also provide significant networking opportunities and ways to connect with other members across the country, 500 businesses that make up our network, through being able to be listed on our directory, being able to post content to our blog to really demonstrate thought leadership, speak at events, appear on this podcast. And then we also do events across the country that are free or discounted for members, including our Cannabis Industry Lobby Days coming up in Washington, D.C. in just a couple short weeks.
Nice. That sounds awesome.
Yeah. And Rick, now why don't we talk a little bit about Buds Group, because the last time we talked, you were accounting Buds, and now you've evolved into a whole group. How did that come about, and exactly what is the Buds Group going to be able to do for people in the industry?
Yeah, it just kind of came about naturally, to be honest with you, over the past 5 years. So I started Accounting Buds in May of 2020. So May of 2025, that's our 5th full year in business that we've completed. In that time, I've met a lot of people in the industry that are really good at what they do. And maybe they didn't want to have their own business, or maybe they were doing a side business at the time, but they wanted to build into something bigger and they just couldn't on their own. But those people that I met, like I said, they're really good at what they do. And our clients could get a lot of good skills from them and benefit from them a lot, but they just couldn't branch out on their own. So via various conversations I've had with people, the conversation was, well, Accounting Buds has a brand, and you've got a good service that we're not offering that's good for our clients. Why don't we bring those services in and do them under the Accounting Buds brand? Over the years, our services expanded to the point where it just didn't make sense anymore for the official name of the company to be Accounting Buds. We actually realized too, we were losing some, proposals that we should have been winning, because people would say, well, why should my accountant be my guy in charge of my security, or my accountant be the guy in charge of my HR team? So I realized at the time, it's really a branding issue we had for some of that stuff, not necessarily capabilities. So I made the decision that we're going to rebrand, or what I'm calling upbranding. I don't know if it's really an official marketing term, but I made it up, to Buds Group, which has multiple divisions. So the Accounting Buds brand isn't going away. Accounting Buds will be a division of Buds Group. But now we also have Security Buds, Compliance Buds, HR Buds, and probably 5 or 6 more that I won't list them all right now and bore everybody. But we've basically gotten to the point where if your cannabis business needs back office assistance or any sort of administrative assistance or consulting, we've got you covered. And if by chance we don't, we definitely know somebody that we could, pull in to do some subcontracting for us and make sure you're covered.
Fantastic. Sounds like you've got yourself a good group too, a good group of buds, if you will.
Yes, that's
So you and I have talked about your new venture, if you will, and I'm
yep,
very privy to one of the things that I picked up in our little interview that we did was the fact that you want businesses, small businesses, big businesses, to be prepared for the next iteration of the industry. So the merger and acquisition world, if you will, you want them to be prepared to be absorbed, to be acquired. To me, that's a great thing to offer. And Aaron, in your situation, and you can follow Rick's answer here, how important that is to a growing industry like the cannabis industry is right now.
Yeah, and actually, as Jimmy was talking about that, I was going to say, hey, Aaron, when I'm done kind of giving my spiel about this, I'd love to kind of hear your take on it. So, the way we see things is if you look at the different states that have come online so far and the different stages of maturity they're in, some of those states are already starting to go through consolidation. Some of the newer states are still growing, and in my mind, are going to follow the same kind of pattern that some of the other states followed, and when they get to that level of maturity. And then there's also the stage that'll come whenever rescheduling and legalization inevitably happen, right? To me, it's not an if, it's a when. And maybe it's 6 months, maybe it's 6 years, whatever. But whenever that happens, there's going to be a new set of entrants to the industry is probably the easiest way to say it. And a lot of those entrants are going to be traditional businesses. When I say traditional, it's non-cannabis businesses that come with large capital, large businesses behind them, right? The beverage industry is probably going to have like the Budweisers or Anheuser-Busch's come in. And when those businesses come in, a couple things are going to happen. The landscape's going to change, right? So some of the small businesses that are there today potentially are going to be wiped out by the big businesses coming in, unfortunately. Some of them are still going to survive, just like, in the alcohol industry, you have your craft brewers and you have the Budweisers. And others are going to be acquisition targets for those big names coming in as well. The big names that come in, though, when they come in, they're going to want to make sure that you've been running your business like a traditional business, not just a kind of cannabis business that doesn't have necessarily controls in there and we kind of do things by the seat of our pants. They want to make sure that, you've got solid books and records, you've got processes and controls, et cetera, in place. I mean, we had one client reach out to us recently that basically said, I'm a CPA, I'm the CFO, I've been doing all of our books and records ourselves. The reason I want to bring you guys in is, one, I'm overwhelmed, I can't do it anymore. But two, I want this company's accounting function and all administrative functions to look to the outside world like a public company would, right? I want to make sure we have an internal audit function. I want to make sure we have a compliance function. We have a solid HR function in addition to, the books and records that are US GAAP based. And when outside investors come in to look at the company to buy it, they understand it without having to get into this is different because we're a cannabis company, et cetera, right? It's all there for them to come in, look at, say, wow, this is a great opportunity. I want to buy it.
Yeah, I think the work you're doing is really important. And I think especially in that, it sounds like you're providing these services in a way that gives small businesses a leg up and an opportunity for them to be able to effectively compete with the big MSOs with a cost-effective service. And it's all the more important given the scrutiny this industry is under, given how the high the regulatory framework that's in place in every state, and then federal prohibition is that there's a microscope on the cannabis industry. And it's really important that professionals like you are behind these businesses so that they can be as effective and successful as possible.
Thank you. Yeah, and one of the things too, just to kind of follow up on that, is it's on top of my mind. I had this conversation with a prospective client today. They mentioned, they're like, "Wow, you're talking to you is a little bit different than some of the other firms we've talked to," and I kind of responded that that's intentional. Before getting into cannabis 5 years ago, my background was financial services, and I worked for did some consulting for big software firms and things like that. I'm trying to, and I started Accounting Buds initially, now Buds Group, because I noticed that at the time, the cannabis industry did not have a lot of that same level of professionalism in some of the ancillary services that was taken for granted elsewhere. There's some firms doing great jobs, but there was not that there wasn't the, hey, there's 25 firms that I could turn to that I know are all going to be super professional and super, great at what they do. And then when I saw that kind of missing here in the cannabis industry with maybe only one or two firms covering it, I thought that there was a pretty good opportunity to bring that same level of professionalism and expertise to the cannabis industry that I've seen elsewhere. And it's, that the vision's kind of coming to fruition with everything we've done in the past 5 years as Accounting Buds, and now Buds Group.
So I got a question, Rick, for you, if you don't mind answering this and talking a little bit about the 280E clause that everybody still would love to get rid of in the cannabis industry. And what's happened is a lot of the multi-state operators have cut their own deals with the states that they're based in to avoid those taxes, or in some cases have actually gotten a rebate back from the 280E fees. And I wonder do you think, is there any way that this could actually be done by small businesses in addition to the MSOs?
Well, there's two different things that you mentioned there. So the state-based taxes, a lot of states have formally decoupled from 280E. So what that means in very quick terms is you don't have to follow 280E at the state level. They treat you as a normal business, not a cannabis business. So for that perspective, you kind of get that treatment in a lot of states right away. From a 280E perspective, what some of the MSOs have done is filed amended returns, basically stating that they don't have to follow 280E at all, and got money back. A lot of people assume that means the IRS is kind of on board with it, or there's low risk to that. That's not really how the process works. The way the process works is as soon as you file your amended return, if it shows that you're due a refund, the IRS processes the refund. They don't audit at that point in time. They audit it at a later date. So now the MSOs who have giant dollars on the line, hundreds of millions of dollars we're talking about, have that money back in their coffers to use this to spend on lawyers and other things that they may need the money for to expand while this gets fought in court. Now, they may win, they may not. There's kind of differences of opinions in there. If they don't, one of the risks is there's certain IRS clauses that say if you are taking extremely aggressive tax stances, and the IRS comes down and decide that it's an extremely aggressive tax stance, they could fine you 20 to 30% of what you already owe. So the risk that the MSOs are taking right now is having to potentially pay back the taxes if they lose, pay lawyers to fight it, and potentially pay 20% on top of that. That's not a risk we are advising our small businesses that we work with, or even mid-sized businesses, to take that risk. They've got hundreds of millions on the line. You may have $500,000 on the line, which is still big, but if you get a 30% fine on top of that and all the lawyer fees, that's not going to be good for you, right? The flip side of it is, though, if the MSOs win in their cases, everybody benefits. So what we're basically telling our clients is sit back, grab the popcorn, watch and see what happens. And if the MSOs win, then we will just file amended returns and you get all the same benefits that they get. But if they lose, you're not going to be in the kind of the same position that they're in.
Aaron, he's got he's got quite the experience now that he's been in this space for about a half dozen years now. And I think that he's getting prepared for the next step, the next evolution, a little more mature market, if you will. Is the timing right, Aaron, for this?
Absolutely. And your advice to clients is exactly the same advice that NCIA provides our members. It's these businesses that that have hundreds of millions of dollars on the line with IRS potential back taxes are in a very different position than the majority of the industry, which are still small, owner-operated, independent businesses, and so it's really important that they don't follow this bad advice, and that they have somebody like you that they can rely on. And sometimes in some cases with the IRS, you're better off owing them a couple $100 million than just $1 million, because they have incentive to keep you in business and make sure that they that they're getting paid something.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, that's an area I'm not familiar with. Okay, let's just say, but I can certainly understand the strategy for that. How do people get in touch with Rick LaNeve at Buds Group? Rick?
So if you want to get in touch with me personally, it's Rick at budsgrp.com. The new website's budsgrp.com. And if you Google us, you'll find us as well. If you Google Accounting Buds, it should by the time this airs, it should be redirecting to Buds Group. So, and all of our former Accounting Buds emails and everything still work too. So if you have the contact from there, you'll still be able to reach us.
Fantastic. And we wish you the best of luck. And more importantly, we thank you for your support. This is exactly what I needed and wanted to see accomplished by this National Cannabis Industry Association podcast, The Voice of Cannabis. And I appreciate you allowing us the opportunity to over-deliver on your support for this.
Thank you guys as well. Thank you.
You bet. So that's episode 4. Aaron and I will be back for episode 5. But for now, remember to like, share, and subscribe to the NCIA's Voice of Cannabis podcast presented by Buds Group. For Rick LaNeve and Aaron Smith, I'm PCM TV founder Jimmy Young. Thank you again. Remember to like, share, and subscribe.
We focus solely on the cannabis space. The cannabis is not just another item that we've put on our website and said, oh, we're in cannabis. We do cannabis and cannabis only, and we focus on cannabis day in and day out. So with Buds Group, we're going to not only work with you and give you advice, we're going to help see your project through to completion. And you're going to find at the end of the day, it'll be a fraction of a cost of working with a larger firm, because our executives are focused just on cannabis and we run lean.
Looking for PR that over-delivers on expectations? At Maverick Public Relations, they pair big agency experience with personalized attention. From launching award-winning brands to securing top-tier media hits, their data-driven communications team helps visionary leaders and entrepreneurs rise above the media noise. Maverick PR is responsive, collaborative, and relentless about results and ROI. Visit themaverickpr.com and make headlines together.
That's a wrap on this episode of the NCIA's Voice of Cannabis. If you liked what you heard, smash that like and subscribe button, follow us on your favorite platform, and share this episode with your network. We've got more industry movers, shakers, and game changers coming your way every week. So don't miss a beat. Tune in next time for another fresh episode with Aaron and Jimmy.